But today we're here with Porto Protocol to talk about climate change in a different context. As you probably know, Porto Protocol is an international, we like to think of it as a community of people across in all sorts of facets of the wine industry who are working on solutions and providing solutions for climate change for the wine industry. And the idea is that as a community, we can work together to adapt to the challenges that we are being presented from climate change. So we've had lots of talks with Porto Protocol, and we've talked about all sorts of solutions in the vineyard, the winery, packaging, wine tourism, and so on. But today our focus is going to be on more the building of the winery. So what we can do to build wineries and other buildings to do with the wine business that are environmentally responsible. And to do that, we have four amazing people to help us. And I'd like to introduce Hugo from Symington Winery in Portugal. We've got people from 5 countries here today. Hugo Azevedo from Symington in Portugal, Sean Barnsley from Lawson's Dry Hills Winery in New Zealand, Robert Eden from Chateau Maurice in France, although Robert might be in England as we speak, and Victoria Gonzalez-Gordon from the well-known Gonzalez Baez in Spain. So we want to have a conversation about these people are all doing amazing things in all facets of their wine businesses in the climate, carbon footprint, climate change space. But today we're focusing on buildings and what we can do to make environmentally friendly and responsible buildings. So I'd like to perhaps start with Sean from New Zealand, who I think it's fair to say, Sean, you have a smallish winery business, and you've really made some big progress with ideas and solutions that will help other people, might be adoptable by other people in their businesses. So perhaps could you start and tell us, you're a carbon neutral winery, but how did you sort of start on that journey, and why did you move down that track, and what were some of the challenges you found on that journey?
Thank you for that, Wendy. So we're a sort of medium-sized Marlborough-based winery. We're sort of certainly very modest in our operation and what we do, and we operate on a very sort of shoestring budget. And we're not sort of well funded by any means. So over a decade ago, while we were certainly part of Sustainable Wine Growing New Zealand, sort of felt the need to go that extra step as far as sustainability within our business. So it sort of got me looking at what accreditations were out there that we could sort of indoctrinate into our business to ensure that we became more focused on all things sustainable. So after searching and looking at various accreditations, ISO 14001 seemed to be the best fit for our business. And the reasons for that was that because it provided a clear framework to work within and a sort of discipline within our business. And that certainly delivered. And so we were accredited ISO 14001 in February 2011 after sort of a 6-month process of getting the data and the requirements to be audited, which was reasonably intensive. And from that point on, it really has brought efficiencies and smart thinking within our business. So everything we do, we consider not only the viability, but also the sustainability issues around that. And it's not just management within our small team. We're only a team of sort of 15, 17 full-time employees, but it's across our business. And why it's been so successful for us is that all staff have been part of this journey. And probably the clinching thing for me making that happen was probably giving the ownership of the management of ISO 14001 to one of the key staff members. It was a bit of a knocker, to be honest, at the start, and it was an influencer within the team. And I made that person responsible for managing ISO 14001. And they become their view, their thinking about, being initially a bit pessimistic, the reasons for, immediately sort of turned around, and they really became a champion of our sustainability drive. And that person actually brought a lot of change to our business. And at the time, we were probably one of very few in New Zealand wineries that were accredited ISO 14001. And due to sort of more market pressures recently, we've become also carbon zero accredited with ISO 14064. So that's been part of our journey. So it's not recent. It's not due to the pressures of the market pressures that seem to be out there regarding sustainability. And this is something that's been part of our DNA. And here we are for well over a decade.
You're mute.
Right. Thanks very much, Sean. I'm being muted when I'm not talking because apparently there's some sort of interference all the way from Australia. So sorry about that. Robert Eden, would you like to tell or explain to the panel and the listeners what it is that you've done specifically with building material in your winery, and sort of why you chose to use that particular building material and what advantages or challenges also that it's had for you?
Yes. Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. We're a biodynamic estate in the south of France, and we've been cultivating our vineyards biodynamically since the year 2000, and didn't really have a very good operating cellar winery, as you call it, when we started out, and got this great idea to build a new vinification center on the edge of an old building which we had. And I went ahead and did this with wonderful prefabricated concrete, massive great towers, and put it all together. One of the most successful buildings I've ever done, actually. It was sort of arrived on these huge trucks, and about 5 days later, it was completed. And I brought the grapes into the winery on that particular vintage, and something was wrong. Something was wrong with the building. The energy didn't feel right to me. The whole thing actually made me quite sick. And I realized that there was a lot of energy going on in this building, which was negative to the way I was cultivating the vines. In fact, it didn't correspond at all to what I was actually doing in the field. The building was completely negating all that. So I decided, right, I've got to get rid of this and I've got to do something else. And I researched. My idea was to respect vegetable life, respect the grapes, respect the energy which is in the fruit by building a vegetable building. And I spent my time going around European building fairs, actually looking for what materials were available and what would be the best form. I visited even rammed earth structures in Australia. I visited straw bale structures in California. And we did a lot of research into how we were going to build this vegetable building. In the end, we discovered that the straw of hemp mixed, so dedusted straw, the waste product, if you like, of the hemp plant, dedusted, mixed with lime, and then adding a molasses-based fixer, we could pour that mixture into a mold and create a brick. And this brick was extremely performant in its U value because it actually breathes, and so it exchanges with the outside temperature as they change. And we had no necessity to add any form of insulation on the inside or the outside to the particular brick. We did a number of tests. We built a number of small little buildings. We tried to burn them down. We encouraged mice and other rodents. We brought them along and put them in the buildings and see if they would eat away at the building. And eventually, all our tests proved conclusive that the building was, going to be able to withstand everything that we put to it. So it's a hemp lime brick building supported by wood. So the whole thing is completely recyclable. It's completely vegetable. It's insulated by hemp in the top. We need no air conditioning units because the building itself never changes temperature dramatically inside. And we've managed to source the hemp from northern Brittany and southwest France, so it's relatively close. We had very little machines on site. It was rather like a Egyptian building. We were just sort of a little sort of cement mix turning around, or all the paste which stuck the bricks together, and a few people just lifting up bricks, and then we'd put the wood and wooden support systems down. So it took a long time to build. And I would highly recommend that nobody does this, because it's much easier to copy somebody else. But it's quite a difficult process, and many builders are not used to this process. So for them, it's quite difficult. But it is a building today which is still standing. We opened it in 2012. And it works very well. People actually, when they come to visit it, they actually say, "Oh, it feels good inside here." So it actually it gives off a very good energy, and we're very happy with its with its energy count. As I say, we're not using any air conditioning units, so it's a very efficient building from that way. It was very light to build, using from a hemp plant. So we've got the carbon sink of the hemp plant in there. We've got the carbon sink of the wood in there as well. And then when somebody comes up with a better idea, we'll just knock it all down and give it back to nature. We can reuse the wood. We will just be able to crush up the bricks, and actually the soil will be quite happy if we put them back into the soil. So from that point of view, it's very interesting as well.
In Australia, we have a lot of buildings built with expanded polystyrene, so cool rooms, sheds, and even the insulation on tanks. And the issue with expanded polystyrene is that if it burns, the fire brigade, if it catches alight, the fire brigade will not come and put the fire out because of the toxic fumes. So what is happening is that some Australian wineries that have a lot of this as a building material, they're becoming uninsurable. So it's just this interesting, it just sort of shows that there's a real imperative to find alternate materials from some of the, more traditional ones that we've been using in some countries. So it's just really interesting to hear about the hemp. The cost, Robert, difficult to build and you kind of have to do it yourself, but was it still sort of a reasonable cost alternative compared to, say, the concrete that you originally put up?
Yeah, we were standard industry standard per square meter cost. If you take out the sort of experimental part, I mean, I didn't want to dry the bricks by using a lot of energy. I could have put the bricks in a big hanger and sent a lot of hot air into that, and that would have dried them. But I really wanted to sort of have the 360-degree process. So not only is the building efficient when it's standing, but it was also efficient during the construction time. So we had a lot of, we made a lot of errors. I mean, the bricks would arrive on site and the builders would pick up the bricks and then they'd fall apart, because they weren't properly dry, or the bricks would arrive on site and they'd be sitting on site, and then it was freezing temperatures, and so they were too hard and they were too brittle. So but if you exact out that sort of experimental part, the errors we made, we're on at a square meter cost, we're at industry standard. And otherwise we wouldn't have been able to build this, because we didn't, just picking up on Sean's point, we didn't have funding falling out of the sky. I went to the European aid and the French system as well to get subsidies for this building. And you cannot get subsidies for a building if you're building something which is completely cost-wise out of industry standards. So we managed to get subsidies because our costing was within the industry standards for a building. So yeah, it wasn't we had to work out that, but we managed to stay within those standards. And today, the cost of running it, we got a whole sort of recycling water. We got a vegetable roof on all the building. We then have a solar panel awning going out in the front. But the whole building collects water, supplies its own energy. In fact, it's energy positive, because we got more solar energy than we actually consume inside the building. So yeah, from all those point of views, it's an extremely efficient building.
Right, thank you. Victoria, perhaps could you tell us about your amazing building that you have there at Gonzalez Bios?
Yes, hi Wendy. Yeah, well, we just received the LEED certification. It's the gold level and the highest level of certification right now, awarded by the US Green Building Council. Well, we have been focusing for the design in 3 different parts. Well, first of all is, of course, the environmental design, then the integration of the winery in the landscape, because we have a different level of between 6 and 8 meters within the plot, and then the use of renewable energies. Well, Veronia, in our winery in La Rioja, we have the old winery still in use, so they are in the same state, let's say. So we built this new winery, started the project, I would say 2008, beginning of 2018, and it was opened end of 19. Still not everything is installed, so the bottling plant is the next thing we are putting there. So we are going step by step, and right now we have both of them in use. But the new winery, which is completely amazing, it's environmentally designed. It's using geothermal energy to climatize installation and to use less energy. Many different technological innovations, so it's very efficient and sustainable. The thing with integrated in the landscape is most of it, because of the different levels of between 6 and 8 meters, most of it is built under the soil level, so we can use the natural temperature of the earth, and then of course, as Roberto said, well, no less impact in the landscape. All the roofs have been covered by plants. We have used autochthonous plants that don't need a lot of maintenance, a lot of water neither. We are collecting all the water also over there. So we can recycle the water as well, and then we are using geothermal for keeping the natural temperature throughout the winery in the lower level. So under the earth we have the bottling line, we have the wine cellar, for barrels, for bottles as well, and in the top level we have all the social part. So in there we have all natural light, and below and we need to keep temperature, and below temperature is very controlled because of the earth temperature and also of geothermal. We have also installed aerothermia, and photovoltaic. So we have been working with we like to say it's a holistic design, because it's been a team of engineers, architects, experts in environmental design, experts in, how do you say, ambiente, like in environment, so that the air inside the winery is also as clean as possible. So just to make all the service of wine and being as efficient as possible.
And just, there are links given in the chat here, so you can actually go to the link and have a look at some pictures of the winery that Victoria's outlining. So Hugo is from Symington. You're about to embark on building or in the process of building a LEED certified winery. Are you able to sort of tell us, you know, how you approached it and just where you are on that journey?
Okay. So at this moment we are under construction. Okay. This is a project that started in 2018, maybe. And how it started. It is inserted in our Ataid farm, which is our largest biological vine, and we also produce well, we need to create a winery in there. So the grapes were going from Ataid to another winery, which is for about 100 kilometers away from this place. Okay, Symington has a commitment for 2025 with sustainability issues, and we would like to have a new winery which would be as much as sustainable as it was possible. So what were our biggest challenges? In first case, there was the integration of the construction on the landscape. So we use a vegetation cover as Victoria in her winery on the roof, which will be covered with autochthonous species that will allow the control of temperature and the ambience in the winery. This will also promote the growth of surrounding fauna and flora, as well as the fact are they being used autochthonous plants. This will make it better adapted to the climates and their hydrological conditions with less needs of irrigation. Also in the surrounding area, we'll have the field covered with native vegetation, which is also adapted to the climate and hydrological conditions of Val de Villarissa. And this will be able to create conditions for people that can enjoy the outdoor spaces, which will be very pleasant. In the exterior, we'll also have some retention and infiltration basins of rainwater, ensuring that the rainwater will be filtered on the land, and preventing also the harmful effects that can be caused by the storms runoffs. We are also creating specific places for parking and charging electric vehicles, as well as places for car sharing. Also, the entire park will be covered with vegetation to prevent the vehicles from heating. The design of the roof of the winery, it's quite cute, and also we have shading flaps in the perimeter of the building, which is filled of photovoltaic panels. That besides producing the electricity for its self-consumption, it will also shade the facades and order to control the excess of solar radiation to inside of the building. Mainly also the most occupied spaces, including the winery, have natural lighting and the ability to control the light and its interior temperature. The equipments that we are installing as the most highest standards of energy efficiency. One of our biggest challenges was to try to change things. Okay, so if you want to have a LEED Gold winery, you need to change processes. It's not just the easiest way is to bought efficient equipments, make a great building with the latest technology, but in the end, it will uses energy, it will uses water for consumption. And the only way we can change this is to change processes. So we need to ask how we were making, how we use the energy, how can we improve the use of energy, how we can reduce our water consumption. These were really the main questions, and I think we are in a good way to decrease our energy consumption and our water consumption.
Sean, you talked about one of the challenges was sort of bringing the people along who worked with you to try and to get the whole idea of sustainability so embedded. Could you expand a little bit more, just in light of what Hugo said there about the challenge of making the change? Can you talk a bit more how you did that?
Yeah, so I sort of touched on that, and I do think for any business that has sustainability at the forefront, you're only ever going to be successful if your whole team is actually engaged and on board with that and willing to go along the journey. Otherwise, it becomes too hard to work. You feel like you've got to police it. So for us, it was bringing on board those people and actually getting some key staff involved and implementing our ISO processes within our business, and that brought discipline to everything. And so everybody, it doesn't matter where they were in the business, if they were cellar hand or the winemaker or the cellar door person doing the wine tastings, it just brought everybody thinking what product they were buying, looking at the life cycle of that product. Is it recyclable, and does it meet what we're doing? And to see that happening within your business at all levels is, it sort of tickles or warms your heart. And I mean, it's a great thing. And if you don't have that, then I do really think you're going to struggle, irrespective of your size. I mean, obviously we're relatively small, but we're not quite small as Robert. But we are a small team, and for it to work, you do need everybody on board. And that's where the engagement. So it was originally driven by me, and then I sort of designated the responsibility out on the team, and they took full ownership, and that's been our success. And every day you see evidence of that, which is great.
And Victoria and Hugo, you're both using vegetation growing on the roof. I'm wondering exactly sort of how you selected the type of plants that you planted, and are there any ways of measuring the efficiency that the different roof gardens have on the temperature in the building, and to work out what is the best thing to have growing on these roof gardens. Victoria, perhaps you could start.
In our project, what we have used is an autochthonous plants, which is called sebum. These are like survive a lot, or they are very strong. They are able to regenerate and to face very well extreme climatic conditions. So we have, let's say, in the roof, we have the concrete, then we have a structure to collect the water, and in that it's where we have all this vegetable garden, let's say. So we have studied the different species that could be used over there, and to be honest, we are quite new, so we are still in this process of studying and adapting. As Hugo was saying, we're also doing all these gardens around the winery just to integrate it as much as possible so that it doesn't interfere in the landscape. So one of them is covering the surface, but also the surroundings. I mean, we are surrounded by vineyard, but also on the parking places and everything. We are trying to be as green as possible, because in the concept of the winery, when the brief was given to the multi team that was looking after it, or that was developing it, one of the points was that it was really integrated in the landscape, so something that could be there for many years and not be aggressive in terms of watching it. So it being very calm and sorry, my thing is falling from my ear, and very, very well integrated, so it doesn't disturb visually.
Well, I think us and Victoria have these problems. We also are planting the autochthonous species. For about a year ago, we have collected seeds in the different locations of our Ataid property, and we've grown these species that will be planted futurely on the roof of the building. Well, Ataid, it's a quite dry zone, so not if you don't have the adequate species, that kind of climate place, they will die. They will need much more water for irrigation. We have a lot of plants in the vineyards that haven't irrigation, and they are all green with great flowers. So we think with a lack of irrigation, we'll have a great roof, a green roof with the colors as much as possible, uniform on all landscape. Okay, for us this is quite new, so we've contacted the design team, which has some experience in this kind of design, roof design, to help us in this project.
Wendy,
Sorry, Robin, you too have a vegetation roof, don't you?
Just to be clear, right? The vegetation is not acting as a cooling agent for the building. You still need, and I presume Victoria and Hugo have this, you still need insulation in your roof.
Yes.
The plants on top, it's a carbon sink, but as Victoria says, the vital part of it is to integrate the building into the landscape. And you really want it to be, that's why we're all using the same plants, because these plants actually require a very little soil. All right, so they require almost a thin gravel is all they actually need to survive. Their root structure very thin and can spread out, and it's there because you don't want to put a lot of weight on your roof. The more weight you put on the roof, right, the more supporting, the stronger the supporting your structure. So you sort of cancel everything out. So the idea of it is a light vegetation cover, which is primarily for integrating into the environment.
Right. Okay. Then that's what I was going to ask. Is it something you could retrofit, or would, if it's light, or would you need to build the structure knowing you're going to have the vegetation on the roof? But you're saying it's light enough that it's not really requiring substantial additional structural strength. Yes.
Correct. And I suppose, I don't know, I've never considered this, but I suppose if you wanted to take off your existing roof structure, whether it be tile or slate or whatever kind of roofing that one may have, I suppose you could take it off, and then you'd have to, you know, above your insulation, you could create a support structure which could receive a vegetable cover. Probably possible.
Yeah. Sean, someone's asked a question in the chat asking, do other wineries in Marlborough come to you, inspired by you, and sort of come to you for ideas and suggestions? Have you?
Yes, we have struck a little bit of that. I mean, the day of wineries that are working close to, you know, and sharing a lot of information, it's probably slowly waned as the industry's grown in Marlborough, but it has been quite surprising how many wineries have asked us, you know, when there's been a posting, for example, about the sort of compostable pallet wrap that we managed to source, and there might have been a social media post on this great product that we've now used totally on all our bottling, and so we do get, you know, people saying, oh wow, you know, that's great, you know, where are you getting that from? We've also had people approach us about the economics of our new solar panels on the roof that we did some 18 months ago, 2 years ago. So yes, that there is some definitely curiosity within the valley, which is good, and because everybody, I mean, so many people are doing a lot of the things that we're all talking about, and they mightn't, you know, be following the route of getting accreditation, and you know, because when we look at the things that we're doing to improve and reduce our emissions, a lot of it is actually common practice at the end of the day. Unless you've got oodles of money to chuck at, you know, quite extravagant things, I mean, a lot of it, the industry is actually practicing, but the important thing is actually communicating that through to your end consumer, and that's by the verification through standards like the ISO or B Corp. I think Roberts recently, or the first winery to become B Corp accredited in Europe, is so vital, and that's why for us, you know, we're the only winery within New Zealand that's holds the 2 ISO accreditations, which is something for a winery of our size and resources. So it's all about information sharing, and because at the end of the day, it's for the benefit of the whole industry. It's not just about us. We want it for, you know, wine brand Marlborough, essentially, rather than what we're doing within ourselves. So yes, we do.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, I mean, there might be people in the audience thinking, well, we just can't build a whole new winery, but what, I'm just wondering, across with all of you, what do you think are the things that people could do in their wineries, just from your experience with what you're doing, where they can get the sort of biggest bang, you know, for their money, the biggest effect for their money? What do you think some of the best things are about some of your buildings that you're talking about, that someone might be able to go away and just adopt? You know, they might not be able to be entirely platinum LEED winery, but there are just aspects of your design that others could adopt.
Well, I'm probably the most qualified, possibly listening to lovely wineries, whether it's the living organic winery Robert talks about, or the lovely wineries, the architectural wineries that Hugo and Victoria have mentioned. I mean, for us, we are that installation panel that you talked about, Wendy, which actually is a very practical and economic product and to build from, and it has great insulation qualities. You can actually get insulation panel that does have actually fire retardant insulation rather than the very old polystyrene. So for us, it's being water recycling from the roof. Not huge costs, but we're able now to sort of recycle and reuse, collected rainwater that accounts for between sort of 20 to 25% of our annual water needs, which is quite considerable. So while that's not adding value to your your carbon emissions, it actually is managing the resource, which is very vital in this whole thing, especially in any one going area, is the use of water. So I think that's a big tick item for sure. And for us, on top of that, thankfully our building is sufficiently engineered for solar panels. So this is certainly one thing you do need to consider with solar panels, is your building needs to obviously stand up to the weight. And that investment for us, which was reasonably considerable, we're seeing already that it's going to be actually giving us probably a payback within 5 to 6 years. So again, I think that is reasonable as far as the return on capital. So they're two obvious items certainly for us.
Yeah, just joining that, Sean, the most difficult thing for us was actually finding a system which would clean, filter used water. So the dirty water that comes out of the winery, very complicated in France to install a eco-friendly system. A natural. We actually managed to do it in the end, but we did it the way that we actually planted our reed beds and have different little capture zones, little ponds, and we then put dirty water through those ponds with the water being analyzed before it went in, and then water analyzed when it came out. And we then had to take that to the French authorities to explain to them that this system really worked. And it was only then that they gave us a permit to do it. But we'd already done it. But it was just a quite complication in the system. But for me, a big challenge was is how to eradicate dirty water ecologically. I don't know the others how you've done that, but I was really pleased to have found this reed bed method which works. It's quite nice to see the water going through the reed beds, and it starts off being red colored because of red wine, dirty, all that from cleaning the tanks, etc., and then it comes out the other end absolutely clean, which is and usable in domestic situations as well.
So can I ask, what sort of scale is that? I mean, what sort of throughput are you putting through that as far as the literage?
Yeah, we're doing. It's a good point as well. Measurement is an important point of all that we're doing, and I would certainly encourage any winery who's wanting to do something small, start measuring, start really counting how many liters of water that you're using, how many liters you're recycling from rain, etc., etc. We're producing, we're vidifying inside the building between 1,800 and 2,000 hectoliters of wine. So if that gives you an idea of so every tank has to be so what we say is 1 liter of wine, 1 liter of water, and that's what's going through the process, and therefore we're that's the water we're recycling. And it's key because we do all use a lot of water in our winemaking processes. And so when we flush it out, it's key that we're able to recycle it to be reused. We use a lot of water, obviously, in the treatment of our vineyards. So we collect the rainwater and our recycled water, which we then put back into our treatment processes. So all the teas that we're doing, or any aspect of our treatment process, we're using recycled or collected water from the winery.
Well, as Wendy was asking, I would like to add a part of what my colleagues have mentioned. First of all is the team, which was also mentioned before. You need to bring everyone on board. So internal audits, permanent education, so that everyone really is working towards the same direction. But also for us, digitalization is very relevant in terms of monitoring and measuring both water and energy. So, for example, we are now with the photovoltaics, we can, during summer, we can use what we generate. But for example, for the night, of course, we could either accumulate or we buy the energy. So we are at that point studying, but really knowing what's happening and where your energy is being used, and by digitalization being able to really use what you need where you need it and at the hours you need it, it's also helpful.
In addition,
your best idea?
Yes. In addition, we have a problem with the reuse of water. Well, all our water goes to our wastewater plant. It's treated, so at the end it can be drained to the water lines. And we are trying to make a system that we can use it on the irrigations of the gardens. Although we have a legal problem, as Robert said, but Robert was to maybe to put the water in the process again. We have the problem in the irrigation system. We are working with a partner to make a new project and to present it to the authority so that we can then reuse this water on the irrigation systems. Also, in these water events, what we reached is that if you could clean the vats without letting the water go to the floor and go to the pipelines and to the wastewater plant, you can reuse it with the first cleaning water in the next vats. So we are developing a clean-in-place system which is adapted to our needs, so that we can reuse as much as possible the water in these cleanings, and also reducing the cleaning products to hygienize the vats. I think what Victoria said, the monitoring of all processes, where you use water, where you use energy, this will improve the next steps to reduce the energy consumption and maybe the water consumption on the winery.
What about just the building design as far as capturing the rainfall?
That's reasonably straightforward for us. It was just a question of increasing the diameter of the downpipes, and the guttering remained the original guttering. So all we did was probably double the size of the diameter of the downpipes, because obviously you're catching rain over a reasonably large catchment area over your roof. So it obviously has got to be able to cope with that. So hence the wider diameter downpipe, so that we had various points coming off the roof, going into one central line that carried that through to two large 30,000 litre water tanks at the far end. So pretty simple. And then we had very basic sort of cartridge filtration for that water, because that water is only used for wash down, not for actually within the winery for anything to do with the winemaking process. So it is, doesn't need to be difficult. It's a pretty simple and straightforward exercise, certainly for us.
Yeah, the important thing at that point, Wendy, is the construction of the collect area. Because we've all got the guttering, and we've got like Sean says, sometimes you have to increase the width of the down guttering, but really it's where it arrives and where you're taking to, which actually is the work. That's the biggest work. And then when it gets there, you've got to be able to access it, to reuse it. You have to keep in mind that when we're working at vineyards during harvest time, we clean a lot of materials. We have a lot of machines, and even if you're like us, even if you're hand picking, that means you've got a lot of baskets which need cleaning. So we have a cleaning zone which is connected to the roof, and we store water there, and it's predominantly used for cleaning, because we use a lot of water in that way.
Something we have also implemented, which is working very well, is a system for cleaning the barrels, which is called CleanWood. It uses high frequency waves. So this is a technology that uses less energy, less water, cleans the barrel inside, makes it and doesn't harm the barrel. So with this technology, this is something that, for example, I think is used like for Formula One motors and all that. So depending on the frequency you use, you can also clean the inside of the wood, and it's also very efficient. So we have implemented this system, which is also helping in terms of reducing water and energy.
How do you call that system, Victoria? What's the name?
CleanWood.
Okay, maybe you can write that down.
Yeah. And then I'll try and put it in the listing.
It sounds really good. Sounds really good.
Yeah. I mean, the technology is innovative in terms of being applied to barrels, but of course it's applied in different things, and it depends on the pressure of the waves. So I'll try write it here. Let's see if I can.
Cool.
Oh my.
Does the process use water or not?
Yes. Yes,
But
it uses water.
But less water, yeah.
Less water.
Mm.
And it's called microwave shock pulse.
Robert and Sion, for the reuse of the rainwater, do you have any treatment system, or do you just put it on the pipes?
Yes, for us, we have a classic cartridge, what sort of micron it goes down to. And then we have a very small sort of ultralight filtration. So it certainly makes the water safe for, as I said, for wash down purposes only. But we obviously wouldn't be using it to anything close to sort of the winemaking or our or going near our bottling plant, for example. So, but that's where a lot of the water use is. And I don't know if I got Robert right, and he was saying that they use this same amount of water as the wine production. I don't know if I had that right or not, Robert, but we certainly don't. We use considerably less water than our annual wine production. And I think that comes down to, again, how the thinking of your staff and the use of water and being mindful of that it is a resource. So it's just that inherent mentality around using a resource, because in our sustainable wine growing New Zealand, which 90% of, well, it's not slightly more wineries belong to here in New Zealand, we do benchmark, these inputs, and I see that we're in the very lower quartile as far as use of water, and I think that's again, I'm not harping on it too much about this, but what we've achieved and making it inherent within what we do, which has come about through having ISO 14001 as part of our business.
So Sean, just repeat that because I missed the first part. You how many liters of water are you using for how many liters of wine? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so we use about 40% of what we use in water per litre of wine we use.
So sorry, I didn't get that. So if you're making 1 liter of wine, you're doing 0.4 of water.
400 mils of water.
400 mils of water, yeah. Okay, that's
And Robert, there's just a question in the chat, just how you treat, if you treat, and how you treat the water you collect from rainfall.
the rainwater we don't really treat, comes directly in and gets reused, as I say, in our treatment processes in the vineyards. So I suppose we do, because we make teas out of our water. So I suppose that could be our rainwater. So that could be considered a treatment, because we're bringing it to the boil before we're adding our stinging nettles or our other herbs, which we're then spraying on the vineyard. And then the other way that we may use rainwater is for cleaning machines, cleaning tractors, cleaning equipment. So we don't, it's only the dirty water which goes through the reed bed filtration system. But I think that what Sean's saying is super cool, is that he's down to 400 mils per liter, which is pretty impressive. I'd love to have conversations with you, Sean, about that. I'd love to hear what kind of processes you implemented in order to get to that level, and how you restrict. I'm sure there's technology.
And there's with obviously the benefit of the recycling of the rainwater dropped in that. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, Doctor.
No, I'll slightly mislead you. So that's the water that we're taking from the aquifer, rather than as opposed to the water that we're using. So the total result would be somewhat higher than that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm finding
that's the benefit of using that water, that the resource that's there that you can use to capture.
Yeah. Understood. Yeah, that's clearer. I'm finding it difficult to find technology which actually reduces water consumption. I mean, we've all got these, sprays which stop when you don't. You've got to have your pressure of your hand on them, and as soon as you take your hand pressure off, the water actually stops. I've implemented quite a few of those little technologies.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Those little.
Yeah, I got little meters on the taps, so that the person actually turning on the tap can see how much water they've actually used when they go ahead and turn it off. But I'm looking for lots of ways to reduce the water use in total. Big challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that gets back to your measuring everything, so you know what you're doing. And look, we're nearly out of time, but I'm just wondering very quickly, just the customer, do you feel like you get this, and the people working in the environments you're creating with these beautiful buildings, what sort of response do you get?
Very positive response. I mean, from my point of view, being a B Corp really helps in that, because B Corp requires you to be inclusive with your salaried members, but it also requires you to be inclusive with your community. So we've explained to our community, the people that live around our building, they've come and seen it. We show them how it works, and we explain that. So that's very positive, and people find that quite cool. And it's great to share. It's great to share it. So very positive from our point of view.
Well, for us, the only thing is that we opened the winery, and then no one could come and visit because of the pandemic, which was a shame. We needed to wait nearly for 1.5 years to go and get to visit it. But we've done a very beautiful social part in the top level, because our winery was born part of a social, we call it Toco. So a group of friends were the ones that built or that created Veroni, and we wanted to replicate all this. So we've done this all in the top level of the winery, where because we are on surface level, we do get the natural light. We control the quality of the air also inside. So we try to give a good experience over there, yes.
Our winery will only open in 2023. So at this time, the project team, especially the enology team, is very motivated to this issue. And they had value to this discussion and all these things about the water and the energy consumption. So I think we have a motivated team to reach our goals.
And just to wrap up, could you each just perhaps give your 2 top tips for, with respect to building design efficiency?
I mean, perhaps for us, it's all about budget. And so really it's being able to source something that is obviously sustainable while economic. And also we've got to be mindful that it's got to be easy to be maintained and clean. So I'd have to put my hand up for the installation panel, because it is perfect for what we do at a price. I'd rather be living and working with something that as beautiful as Robert has, that's organic and living. That's a beautiful thing, but in fact, I don't think it would actually work for us.
Robert, you have to go, but just 2 tips before you leave.
Reduce energy use. I mean, look around and just see, reduce impact. And that's what we all have to do all the time, is consider our impacts and try and make our impacts positive, but also reduce the negative ones, rather than sort of going into a sort of big elaborate thing which you've got to do, which you've got to build, etc. Just reduce what you're doing now in order to make a more positive impact. And thank you very much, by the way, for inviting me to this. Really enjoyed it. Lovely to meet you all. I would actually like to spend more time discussing these things, and I'm probably going to sort of message you all individually, because I'm certainly going to come and see my Spanish neighbors and see what they're doing. And Portuguese. I'd like to come down there and have a look at all that, because it's great fun, really seeing the things and sharing all about it. So, been a wonderful time. Thank you very much. Have a great time.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Please come and visit us. We'll be very, very happy to welcome you. Well, on our side, what I would say is measure, so you can be sure you are reducing. So numbers are important in the end. You need to measure, and then teamwork. Everyone needs to be involved in this.
Well, for me, I think it's the reuse of water, the changing of the processes, the respect for the regions in our case, and also the respect for environmental. And thank you for the invitation.
And if I can just thank you all too for your time tonight or this morning or whatever time zone you're in, and it's just so inspiring to hear all your stories about what you're doing, and I take my hat off to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. And
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you.